supervise and play an important role in maintaining specific ecosystem functions globally. It is known as the most valuable natural ecosystem type that significantly supports wildlife habitat, including provide food, water and shelter for fish, birds and other wildlife. Wetlands also provide important ecosystem services such as water quality improvement, food abatement and carbon sequestration. Wetlands is defined as distinct ecosystems that are flooded by water or that have waterlogged soil for a significant part of the vegetation growing period. They are identified as transitional between terrestrial and aquatic systems, where are characterized by the water table being usually at or near the land, or by the land being covered by shallow water. There are two types of wetlands, which is natural and constructed. Natural wetlands usually purify and improve the quality of water passing through the system. This is because they are act as ecosystem filters. The second one is constructed wetlands. By contrast, these wetlands are artificially engineered systems that are designed and constructed to use natural processes where suitable to remove pollutants from contaminated water within controlled environment. However, both natural and constructed wetlands can be considered as viable alternatives to conventional systems for the wastewater treatment. Four common kinds of wetlands are marsh, swamp, fork, and bend. Each of them have specific characteristics that represent their nature. Next, this is an example of marsh, swamp, bog, and fen. There are many differences between marsh and swamp. For marsh, it can be found near the fringes of lakes and streams, while swamp usually found along larger rivers and lake shores. The hydrology for marsh is seasonal to permanent flooding, and prolonged saturations and flooding for swamp. Next, area covered with water for swamp is much bigger and deeper compared to marsh. Hence, the dominant vegetations in swamp have high proportions of tree, where it is dominated by high-lying woody plants. Besides that, there are two more kinds of wetlands, is bog and fen. Bogs are acidic wetlands filled with a build-up of slowly decaying vegetation called peat. They are dominated by peat mosses and get their water only from rain and snow. Fens also features a build-up of peat. However, instead of a lot of peat mosses, sedges are the dominant vegetation. They are less acidic than bog. This is because water flows through them. Here are the characteristics of wetlands. Usually, wetlands are classified by their hydrological features. It is described as the site water inputs and outputs and the flooding regime. Vegetation and animal response to changes in water levels among years. All wetlands receive water from one or more than following sources such as rain, snow, groundwater flow and surface water flow from other rivers or streams. The wetlands hydrologic conditions such as hydro period is the seasonal patterns of water level of a wetland. It defines the rise and fall of wetland surface and subsurface water. Next is the role of salinity. Salinity has a strong influence on wetlands chemistry, especially wetlands in the coast area. For non-riverine wetlands, human activity may be influenced in regulated natural salinity. Third characteristic is soil. Carbon, sulfur, phosphorus, and nitrogen are the most nutrients found within the soils of wetlands. Anaerobic and aerobic respirations in soil influences the nutrient cycling of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Lastly is biota. Biota in wetland system include its flora and fauna. The major factor affecting biota is the time longer of flooding. Sources of water and geological material is influenced by the chemistry of water flowing into wetlands. Next, we talk about the importance of wetlands. Wetlands are used as water storage, especially to control flood. During rain, the amount of water running over the surface of the land increase, may resulting flooding. So, wetlands have the capacity to temporarily store flood waters. Wetlands also can be groundwater replenishment. Some wetlands are located at points where surface water enters an underground aquifer, thereby recharging groundwater supplies. Next, wetlands is one of the reservoirs of biodiversity. As we all know, wetlands not only contain water, but there are around 40% of world's plants and animal species live in wetlands. Lastly, wetlands act as water purifications. As sediment, excess nutrients and chemicals flow off of the land, wetlands filter the runoff before it reaches open water. Then we are proceed with issues related with wetlands. The most important issues is imperfect management system. Wetlands are considered as the unused land or white land, which has led to a large number of wetlands being reclaimed. The higher agencies are not responsible to wetlands management and lack coordination mechanism for management, causing difficulties for effective protections of wetlands. Additionally, different goals from different agencies in protections of wetland is the main reasons for the lack of effectiveness in wetland management. Second issue is insufficient public awareness. The significance located between land and water leads to difficult in management. Plus, with the rapid urbanizations and economic development, environmental pollution, especially wetlands, has become more serious. These situations become worse is due to many people are not aware of the importance of wetlands and have a little knowledge about it. So, to raise public awareness, wetlands education in school and college needs to be strong and more advanced research about wetland is needed. Third is climate change. Climate strongly affects the change of wetlands, mainly through the air temperature and precipitations. Precipitation will increase the water contents of soil and can expand the area of wetlands. This shows positive correlations between wetlands and precipitations. The correlations between wetlands and air temperature is different compared to precipitations. For example, rising in temperature may resulting the evaporations and can influence the wetlands ecosystem. This is because higher temperature cause melting glaciers and the water supply for wetlands also increase. Besides that, global warming also cause sea levels to rise and will result in coastal wetlands retreat from the land. And the last one is pollution. Pollution can be considered as main factor in wetland degradations. Wastewater discharge from industry, agriculture and animal husbandry are direct threats to wetland ecosystem. This is due to the large amount of industrial wastewater and domestic sewage will discharge into wetlands and pollutions from pesticides and fertilizers resulting in serious polluted wetlands. Another cause of pollution is overgrazing, fishing, hunting, urbanizations and agriculture activities are accelerated the loss of wetlands biodiversity. Next, the improvements of wetlands. Special laws and regulations for wetlands need to be improved. This is because the existing laws have not effectively regulated wetlands at the system level, which are only focused for land resources, animal and plant resources protection. The clear definitions of wetlands management, wetlands protections, responsibility, and the rights should be also regulated. Moreover, some comprehensive management measures should be carried out as soon as possible. Next is the enhancement of public awareness. As I mentioned just now, most of public are not aware to importance of wetlands. So, to overcome it, wetlands knowledge, education and training should be strengthened. We believe that through the joint efforts of the government and enterprises, public participations will be improved in wetlands management systems. Next, strengthening wetlands monitoring and research. Research on wetlands is still in the initial stage. Due to different characteristics, wetlands are still not have a specific management which is not conducive, especially for effective protection wetlands. Therefore, more fund is needed to support wetlands scientific research. And the last one is landscape conservation. The idea of green infrastructure can increasingly emerging as planning and design concept is to create places for people that can enjoy the beautiful nature. This also may help communities to plan in a way that it optimizes land use.
Hello, my name is Farna and Shafika, and I will be presenting on the water pollution parts. So first, we need to know the definition of water pollution. So water pollution is defined as the addition of any substances that cause the changes in water quality. The polluted water has a harmful effect on living organisms and make the water unsuitable for the desired uses. The substances that cause water pollution can be either solid, liquid, gaseous origin, chemical, physical, or biological components that give different effect according to their amount or their concentration. As for the sources of water pollution, it can be divided into two, which are point sources and non-point sources. Point sources is the pollution that comes from a specific location. For example, the industrial discharge, sludge from a copper mine, storm drain, and also the wastewater treatment places. Meanwhile, the non-point sources is the pollution that occurs from the multiple sources with no single polluter can be identified. Next, these are the differences on the characteristic between the point sources and non-point sources. For example, the sources of pollution in point sources are from wastewater effluents such as the municipal and industrial. Municipal wastewater are primarily from sewage, storm drains, septic tanks, boats, and also runoff from the yards. Meanwhile, the industrial contamination can occur whenever the toxic byproducts find their way into the environment without the proper processing and disposal. Other than that, the runoff and infiltration of animal fecal into the water bodies will also cause pollution to the surface and the groundwater. As for non-point sources, the pollution is caused by the runoff from agriculture, construction site, atmospheric deposition over a water surface, and also the activities on land such as logging, wetland conversion, and the constructions. So now, these are the importance of reducing water pollution. First, it is important to reduce the water pollution because we want to prevent the water shortage that may happen in future and reduces the amount of contaminated water that needs a treatment. To conserve the water, it can be done by turning off the tap when running water is not being used. Conserving water are important to ensure a continuing abundance of water that is safe to use for ourselves and also our future generations. Other than that, reducing water pollution is important as the polluted water can be a threat to human, animals, and also plant health. It needs to go through a costly purification procedure in order to ensure that the water is clean and safe to use. Next, the pollutants such as herbicide, pesticides, fertilizers, and also other hazardous chemicals will contaminate our drinking water sources, reduce the oxygen levels which can kill the fish and other wildlife. The contaminant also will accumulate in the tissue of fish that we catch and eat from the lakes, and also it reduces the beauty of the water, especially the streams and the river. Lastly, by reducing the water pollution, it can help in improving the economy of a country, as the polluted water is known as one of the causes that are damaging to the economy. Since polluted water will increase the cost of treating the water, it will lead to the losses in tourism and also lower the local real estate values and damage the commercial fishing. These are some issues that occur regarding water pollution. First, the introduction of chemical fertilizer, pesticides in agriculture causes that the discharge of it into rivers, lakes, and seas, enhancing the eutrophication phenomenon. Eutrophication is caused by the gradual increase in the concentration of phosphorus, nitrogen, and other plant nutrients in an aging aquatic ecosystem such as a lake. The productivity or fertility of such an ecosystem naturally increases as the amount of organic material that can be broken down into nutrient increase. Next, the issues on improper treated materials of fecal origin from animal or humans that reach water bodies through the sewage discharge will cause water pollution. The presence of fecal contaminant is an indicator that a potential health risk exists for individuals that are exposed to this water. Fecal coliform bacteria may occur in ambient water as a result of the overflow of domestic sewage or non-point sources of human and animal waste. Other than that, the discharge of toxic and non-biodegradable substances coming from industrial will flow directly into rivers or will disperse in soil. And the pouring of the hot water that used in the industrial during the processing may cause the body's water temperature increases, and it will alter the aquatic ecosystem. The increases in water temperature will cause lower level of dissolved oxygen due to the inverse relationship that exists between the dissolved oxygen and temperature. As the temperature of the water increases, the dissolved oxygen level will decrease. Next is the sources of water pollution. The oxygen-demanding substances such as might be discharged from milk processing plants, breweries, or pebble mills, as well as municipal wastewater treatment plants, compose one of the most important types of pollutants because this material decomposes in the water course and can deplete the water of dissolved oxygen. Most suspended solids are made up of inorganic materials through the bacteria, and algae can also contribute to the total solid concentration. The suspended solids refer to a small solid particle which remain in suspension in water. It is used as one of the indicator for water quality, typically for wastewater applications. The plant nutrients, mainly nitrogen and phosphorus, which come from the residential and agricultural runoff, and it may cause nutrient pollution. The nutrient pollution is the process where too many nutrients, mainly nitrogen and phosphorus, are added to the bodies of water and act as a fertilizer and causing the excessive growth of algae. The net sources are from heat. Heat may be classified as a water pollutant when it is caused by heated industrial effluent or from the anthropogenic alterations of stream bank vegetation that increase the stream temperature due to the solar radiation. Heated discharge may drastically alter the ecology of a stream or lake. As for infectious agent, it is mainly come from animal and human waste where it can caused by the bacteria, viruses, and also parasite growth. Water pollution has an adverse effect on the destruction of biodiversity, contamination of the food chain, lack of water resources, and also the exposure to disease. the destruction of biodiversity. It may trigger the aquatic ecosystems. A pollution will pose a serious issue as it can cause variations in the environmental conditions which aquatic organisms are sensitive. The aquatic organisms will respond to drastic changes in the environment by migrating to any other suitable habitat, or in extreme cases, they just die off. As for the contamination of food chains, the toxin will accumulate in marine life animal such as fish, and when human fishing in the polluted water and consume that fish, it will lead to the disease such as diarrhea. The water pollution also affect the drinking water resources. There will be no access to the clean water to drink and the sanitation, especially in rural areas. Hence, it is why we need to control and prevent the water pollution. Next is the exposure to disease. It may increase as the water pollution increases. Other than the contamination in aquatic life, drinking contaminated water also may expose them to the disease such as cholera and hepatitis A. There are a few improvements that we can do in order to tackle these water pollution issues. First, through regulation. The water requirement for energy and industrial use is rise due to the rapid industrialization and urbanization. Other than that, the poor environmental management system, especially in industries, may lead to the discharge of highly toxic and organic wastewater. The poor management is the main cause on our water pollution system. And the enforcement and regulations regarding the discharge of industrial wastewater and limits of extraction of groundwater should be considerably strengthened. Next is the improvement on water treatment. Wastewater from domestic sources in most countries is hardly treated due to the inadequate sanitation facilities. The wastewater containing organic pollutant will flow into surface and groundwater courses near the residential area. The high concentration of organic pollutant will lead to the high cost of water treatment. Considerable investment to install the treatment system should be done by every industrial and also every residential. Other than regulations and water treatment, we also need to do improvement in monitoring the distribution of water. Reducing maintenance of the distribution system or from the insufficient treatment, it may lead to the microbial growth without the consumer notice. The water distribution systems should be periodically flushed in order to remove the sediments, deposits, and microorganisms that grow within the pipe. This monitoring also can avoid a break in the distribution system, especially during the installation, constructions, and cross-connection. Lastly, we need to minimize the usage of fertilizers. The movement of nutrients in cultivated soils depends on the solubility of nutrient. For example, the phosphate has a low rate of solubility and is retained by the absorption in soil. Other than that, by taking the special care when applying any inorganic fertilizers on the field where it's a risk of runoff to the surface water, and limiting the application of fertilizers to growing plant can prevent the water pollution.